I have been close to who based who my friends were, who based who my girlfriend was, thought that I was disgracing the family and the community that I was in because I was going with the blackest girl in my school.
Your family was angry about that?
Absolutely.
So your family essentially was saying to you, look, you're lucky, look at your skin color, you don't have to worry about everything that afflicts America. Don't blow it now by dating a black-skinned person.
Absolutely.
Linda Medesian, you're multiracial.
Right.
Now, what's the difference?
Right. Well,
and aren't we all?
Well, multiracial is a person with one parent of one race and another parent of another race, or a person with parents who are multiracial themselves. My father is black and American Indian. My mother is Irish. So I'm a blend of three races.
Mm-hmm. And you think that this is important because you want another category of...
Yeah, definitely.
So in other words, on your driver's license, or when, I know it's not legal now to do that. For what purpose... For what purpose would a category be deployed?
It would validate the reality that has been in America for at least 350 years.
Which is?
There have been multiracial people, and I include in that definition biracial people, people who are just a blend of two races.
But isn't that, wouldn't that be Rock's circumstance? Isn't he biracial?
I don't know. Are you?
I don't find any significance to developing another race. It's something that's another division.
Well, that's an expected opinion, because that opinion has been here for a very long time. And what I'm saying is that there are people, much like myself, who want to be affirmed and accepted for all of who we are, and not ignore, you know, 2/3 of our genetic heritage to please society. I am affirming all of who I am, my black heritage. I'm very proud of my black heritage. I love my father. I feel a bond with black people. I feel a bond with all of who I am, all the people.
I do think this audience, though, might perceive your interest in having another category, namely multiracial, as an effort to distance yourself from blackness.
No, not at all. It's to affirm all of who I am.
Okay. Now, do you understand this little rumble that we've got here?
I grew up for 28 years having black people, you know, hold me at arm's length, basically, and you know. You weren't them, and you weren't white, and why? Because you weren't black enough. Right, I was not black enough. Right.
Well, look who's here, Edward Lawson. Who will forget Mr. Lawson? Let me tell you, in case you've forgotten, and you shouldn't have. Here's the California Walkman. No kidding. Here's a guy who would stand on a street corner and get arrested. Yeah. And what is not so funny is that it often happened. It happened on public property. He couldn't walk down the street. Some cop had come up. He filed a lawsuit and took it all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And guess who won? He did. So you're here. How do you feel about what's transpired here? You're listening in on. You're not surprised by the response of this audience to some of these?
I think there are two things that I would say very quickly, Philip.
Proceed, Edward.
I think first, let me take you to our very brief conversation before we went on the show here, as you were very kind to indulge. This is about the third or fourth time I've been on your show. Let me make my first point is that in all the shows that I've ever done, this is the best looking audience I have ever seen. That's what Johnny Carson calls cheap applause. Now let me go on to a second point. Let me, without hesitation, pick up the cross which you want someone to bear, and that is the question of light-skinned blacks discriminating against dark-skinned blacks. I have lived all of my life in some semblance of the black community, and it's a very curious thing to me. I have always heard all of this about light black discrimination, but I simply never believed it. We came from a family where we were all about the same color. It is only in recent years where this particular subject, which is more buried in the black community than incest, has come to the fore. Yeah. And I think for most of us, being a generous people, being a people who so long wanted to get away from racial questions, there's a desire to sweep this thing under the rug. We don't want to talk about it, but it is here. And the clearest indication you can get of how present this discrimination of light-skinned blacks against dark-skinned blacks, or even worse, dark-skinned blacks against dark-skinned blacks, is to understand the history of where we came from as people. And that history is very rich. Those among us who have light skin, you must understand that we acquired that light skin essentially from a product of slavery. Those of us who live with whiteness in our complexion, we are the living legacy of the fact that Uncle Sam repeatedly raped Mother Africa century after century after century. And therefore,
I'm not sure I understand the consequences of this reality. Does this... Wait a minute. And you're dangerously close to but the point is that painting self-hate on light-skinned black people.
No, but you see, this is the product. If you look at virtually any so-called black college, do you know where they came from? What happened is a white slave owner would rape a black woman, eventually have a set of conscience pains, and start a school for his light-skinned children. Yes. What would happen if you talked about the only black people who were permitted to read or learn to read? They were his light-skinned children. Yes. The first people to be freed when he died and left it in his will were his light-skinned children. Right. So when emancipation finally came about, those among us who were light-skinned had already been integrated into American society. Yes. And the rest of us who were darker were slaves, and we have remained in the white American mind and in our own mind that distant slave even to this day.
W. Curtis Banks joins us. You are a psychologist on sabbatical leave from Harvard. You've recently done some research on the very thing about which we speak, so kindly bring an academic perspective to this. I'll give you a blank check here. What would you like to share with us here at the outset?
Well, the first thing I'd like to share is that I'm on sabbatical leave from Howard University.
Well, all right. You have my apology.
The second thing is that I want to go back to the dilemma that you posed between yourself and the audience. Why is it that you raised a question about complexion discrimination? And you have a denial from the audience that there is a clear preference for light skin.
True, we did.
The reason for that is that the audience is right, first of all. There is not, and apparently has not been, a preference for light skin complexion in the black community, any more than there has been ever a preference for white complexion in the black community.
Who wants in there? What do you, yeah. Yes.
What I like to say that has not been my experience in this world. My experience from even black brothers is light skin, hey, light skin. I mean, they prefer light-skinned women. I've even seen sisters wearing 3 shades lighter foundation because they're not happy with their blackness. There is discrimination.
Yes, sir.
I am one of the women up there's clothing designer, and I have been on several experiences with her where people will say, oh, she's so ugly, and they say that because she's dark. And she possesses all the inherent features of what people consider beautiful. Full lips, high cheekbones, almond eyes. She's a beautiful woman, but people react to her that, oh, she's ugly because she's dark.
Yeah.
I believe because of the experience in the 60s that there was a breaking down of this difference between light skins and black skins, and that anybody who still maintains that type of thought today needs some teaching.
Yes, they do, but that type of thought doesn't just go away. I think Ebony, I give Ebony credit for telling us about her grandmother, and my own limited experience tells me that was common.
I can understand how people feel about those things, and they're valid for each person's experience, but I just don't consider it to be a valid issue in and of itself. It's fundamentally wrong.
Yes, ma'am. You want? Yes, ma'am.
I think that it may be a fact, but we are all black in here, light and dark, and we need to stick together and forget about what color we are, because politically and everything, we are lacking. We are not together politically. We need to get together and forget about what color we are.
Yeah, but we're not going to fix it if you're going to say that you can't fix, white people can't fix racism if they don't acknowledge they have it.
We live in a looks-at society. Men, period, don't like fat women. That's a whole nother issue. It's a look to society. You can't get rid of it. You cannot get rid of it. How many men in here date a woman that weighs 300 pounds? You won't.
Well, let's
so
go.
what? It's a preference. So then you have some men that prefer...
Yeah, some men what?
Then you have some men that prefer a light-skinned woman over a black woman because they feel that they are so beautiful and they're so close to white that they can have beautiful like kids with the long hair.
Yes. But see,
okay?
but this kind of testimony, now hold on a minute. This kind of testimony has to do with gender. The sisters believe this and the males are saying, nah, it doesn't exist.
That's not what I'm saying.
Because I had a friend and he asked me, I told him, I said, I have a girlfriend I want you to meet. He said, well, is she light skin or brown skin? I said, does it matter? He said, well, I don't date light skinned women because they think they got their butt on their shoulders. They think they're too cute. Okay?
I would just like to bring back the point that I do know of a small southern college that to be admitted, you have to send in a photograph with your application. And if you're light-skinned, you was accepted. If you're dark-skinned, you was rejected.
Listen,
and that's a fact.
There are clubs now, or have been, private clubs, that determined whether or not you got in was determined by how you matched a paper bag. You probably know this. Now, let me just show you Frank's Place. Frank's Place, the TV show. Watch this. The guy wants to go to a club, and she's calling him on it.
See this bag?
Yeah.
Which is darker, me or the bag?
You.
Which is darker, you or the bag?
What are you talking about?
The capital C Club? In the old days, Frank, if you were a light-skinned black, you were a Creole. They spell Creole with a capital C. If you were dark-skinned, it was Creole with a little c. And there was a big difference between the two.
Skin color used to be the big separator in New Orleans, Frank.
Still is. They just ain't as out in the open about it.
I'm really impressed. This is interesting. I see the women with a different perspective than the men.
Okay, when I was at Howard, okay, the first thing that I did, because there were so many beautiful brown-skinned women there, I went out and got Max Factor tan number 2.
To be dark. To be dark.
Put it all over my face until one day a fellow picked me up for a football game, and he looked at me and he said, what is that peanut butter mess all over your face, girl?
Okay, I would just like to say that it's imitation. Black people imitating white people. In 1890, my great-grandfather was born. In 1898, my great-grandmother was born. They were dark-skinned, but they were prejudiced against dark-skinned. And they put me on a pedestal, their little great-granddaughter.
Because you were a blade.
And my sister, who was dark-skinned, they made her feel very bad.
Now,
and they were imitating.
Yeah, but how has this influenced you? Apparently not...
Well, you know how it influenced me? When I was little, I knew it was wrong. When I was 4 years old, 3.5, 4 years old, and I said, Mama, why are you doing this to Marie? And she said to me, if you want to be treated the same, you better keep your big mouth shut, okay? So I quieted up. But anybody that bothered my sister in school, I beat them up, okay? If they told her that she was dark and she was ugly or what have you, I beat them up. I fought for her. I wouldn't fight for myself. I was chicken. But for my sister, I would fight.
I believe you, and I don't ever want you mad at me. Listen, here's what is not so funny. You obviously had a sense of, you can't do that to my sister, this is my sister, that's great. But how about those young women who were raised, doesn't depend on sex, any males as well, who were raised, who didn't have the discriminated sister, were suddenly celebrating their lightness. You grow up with your own problem about fellow black people. Okay. That's the agony and the legacy that's left by grandmothers. God bless them. I'm sure they had, okay.
Some good intentions.
You know
but
what
I know a light-skinned sister who is on a pedestal today, okay, because her mother put her on a pedestal. Mother was dark, the father was light, so they had this light-skinned little girl.
Tell me about
so the mother would always say, oh, you light-skinned, you so pretty. And then when she had a daughter, the daughter was light-skinned. And then the grandmother had a foster child that was dark-skinned. She would peg the granddaughter against the little chocolate little boy, okay? And this daughter of hers, light-skinned, sat up there and allowed her mother to do this.
So arrogance is bred by
Okay,
it.
so some people do not realize what's right and what's wrong. Some people don't realize what's correct and incorrect.
Point. But
okay?
determining what's correct and incorrect has a lot to do about the influence of your childhood. And if your family is celebrating lightness,
Let me tell you something. You know what's right and you know what's wrong. I don't care who you are. If you have any amount of intelligence, we're all born with that. And my mother, great-grandmother, was wrong, okay? She was wrong. And I love her. She taught me so much.
Thank you.
But
That's
she
very
was
honest.
wrong.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
Balance.
I'm glad you waited, caller. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm half white and half black. I haven't even been wanted by my own family.
You haven't even been what?
Wanted by my own family. I'm not allowed in my brother's house. And what do you do? In school, the blacks didn't want me because I was too light. I couldn't be black, and the whites didn't want me because I was too dark.
Well,
how do you fight this your whole life? My father didn't want me, yet his mother was black.
Yeah.
My mother was the only one that protected me.
Yeah, Linda, commenting.
What's your name?
Well, shit, don't do that.
My
'cause
name
then
is Jen.
I can relate a lot to her because I grew up in a black neighborhood. The blacks didn't accept me. I grew up in a white home environment. My mother was white, my grandparents were white, and my father was not home. So I realized it very early that I was different. I was treated as white by the blacks, and I knew I wasn't white when I compared myself with my mother.
And you were treated as black by the whites.
Right.
All right.
When I finally became in my 20s, I resolved it. And I resolved it by affirming all of who I am. And I think that's the resolution. You cannot say, I am black only, and ignore the rest of your lineages. Because you know what's that saying? That's saying one drop of black blood and you're black. And let me say,
go ahead. Please make your point.
That logic was started by the white slave masters to oppress as many blacks as they could.
Now, what logic? We
the
were
logic
distracted.
that one drop of black blood makes you black. And that same logic is used today in South Africa to oppress as many people as possible.
Phil.
And I am not going to deny my mother and her relatives and my American Indian relatives.
But that's because you're a very healthy, centered woman. Not this woman with whom we spoke a moment ago on the phone. I think your advice to her is she has got to put this together all by her.
She has got to accept all of who she is, affirm all of who she is,
and
not let anybody tell her who she can and cannot identify with.
Over here, please.
Well, you know, me growing up, my sister was dark-skinned. I'm from, my parents are from Barbados, West Indies. My grandmother is dark-skinned, you know, and we were brought up to respect each other. We have enough problems dealing with the white America.
That's right.
All right, we have enough problems to deal with that. So we have to, you know, fight amongst ourselves. We can't do it. Light skin, brown skin, black, pink. You gotta take care of yourself, and you gotta take and deal with the problems that is presented to you.
We agree. You'll get it. Yeah, I promise you'll get it. Just give me. I got wisdom on it.
Phil, I like to first say that there's a lot of light-skinned women in here, a lot of dark-skinned women in here, and they're all beautiful because black is beautiful.
Okay.
But what I'd like to ask is to the two lighter-skinned people up on the stage, were they, like, in their family, were they prejudiced against, were they the only light-skinned people in their family, everybody else dark?
Rock?
Or
no,
were...
my whole family was like light-skinned. And one of the things that I have never experienced in my life was a discrimination from other blacks. For whatever the reason, I was accepted.
You were lucky.
I was accepted.
Very lucky.
And Phil, I'd like to make a point, though, that the gentleman up there made. I'd like to just give a quick example. One time when my cap wouldn't fit me and I couldn't play my baseball game, I took off from school at lunch and went and got a haircut at a white barber shop. It's the first time I'd ever done that. My uncle had generally cut my hair. When he found out what my name was and that I was black, he said, he put the razor to my throat that he was shaving the back of my head with and said, nigga, don't ever come in here again. I make that point for this reason.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 12, 13 years old. Whoa. I'm as light-skinned, I guess, as you can possibly get. And those people, those people...
I'm not sure of that, Rock, but go ahead.
Well, the point is that those people and those institutions that choose to oppress us look at us, no matter what our hue, as just another nigger.
Yes. Linda, please.
Reality. If you have a white mother and a black father, and you're calling yourself black, you are ignoring half of your heritage. You are ignoring it. Let me say, why is it logical to have a black...
I have to agree with a lot of what people are saying in here. I think that black Americans have a lot more to deal with than who's lighter than who. This is my best friend here, okay? And she's as light as anybody else up there, but do you think we have time to sit around and talk about who's lighter than who?
You don't sit around.
But wait a minute, let me finish making... My point is this, a lot of it has to deal with a legacy of white supremacy that black people in this country have to deal with, as well in South Africa. When you get into color, okay, you can go all over the globe. Black people are spread to the corners of the world. We cannot afford to start separating ourselves like black, Indian. Right.
But you can't fix this if you don't acknowledge it's here. That's the point.
We're acknowledging that it's here. We are acknowledging that it's here, but we're saying let's move on and deal with it.
Just a second. Yeah.
Ideally, this is all fine, but the fact is, if you want to really look at what the situation is like, you have to look at the children, okay? Because children will say things that adults want. We learn to mask things and not say certain things. My mother is a teacher in an inner-city school where there is constant joking among the children between, oh, you ugly black thing, you ugly. The children who are light-skinned, the Puerto Rican kids, they treat the black kids like dirt. I have cousins who are mulattoes, okay? That's the old term that they use for interracial children of interracial marriages. And those children, when they were here with me in New York, all the kids thought they were the best thing on the block because their mother was white.
You know what
and they all wanted to know. And that's the media. It's the media. The media is doing this because the media has the best image of what it is to be beautiful. And it's European features. The media brings up the image of what's beautiful. And black children are some great consumers of the media. Yeah. And they are the ones who are really becoming the victims of it. So it's fine for us to ignore us, but the fact is it's there and it starts from childhood.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
I can't.
Are you there, caller? Go ahead.
Yes, Phil. I am a college student. I am dark-skinned. I am black. I am from the Midwest. It is very prevalent that blacks discriminate against other blacks. I'm very similar to the very first woman on your panel. I grew up in an all-white neighborhood, went to an all-white private Catholic high school, all girls. I didn't encounter this until I came to this university. It's a big 8 school. I came here wanting to pledge a sorority. They told me, oh, no, you will never do. There's never been a dark-skinned girl to pledge this sorority. You will never do. I've been here for 4 years.
You know about this?
I left that sorority alone.
Hang on a minute.
What she's saying about sorority fields one day was true, that the sorority I'm in, if I was dark-skinned, I wouldn't have been able to pledge 60 years ago. But that's all changed.
No, he says no. Now, wait a minute. You want in this? What's the matter?
Believe me.
Hold on. What's the matter? Yeah.
That's not true. I have a daughter who's dark-skinned who went to Cornell University. The black sorority up there rejected her. Not only the sorority, but the black men. They dated white women or very fair black women. My 2 daughters to this day are hurting. Now, it's true that my daughter pledged a white sorority because they wanted her. And she's very dark girl. Now, we join together as a group when we have a common problem, and when you go on these marches, blacks of all hues are there. When the group as a whole is threatened, we're there like a family, but we can't deny that this exists in our group.
Yeah, just 1 second. Hang on 1 second. Would you mind, now you don't have to, if this would jeopardize you in any way, what's the school?
I go to KU, Kansas University, Danny Manning. Trying to win the big A.
Kansas as in Lawrenceville.
Right, Lawrence, Kansas. I'm from St. Louis.
I mean Lawrence, Lawrence.
Lawrence, Kansas. I'm from St. Louis.
What's the
sorority?
Yeah.
Alpha Kappa Alpha.
I'm light. I'm dark. And they got a lot more K's in here, I bet. We are mixed. The bacillus is dark.
Hang on, yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I wanted to answer the lady's question about her daughters with black men only dating light women. My brothers are very fair with green eyes, and they have 2 black, beautiful wives. It's an individual thing. I also am quite fortunate. I have 1 dark child and 1 light, and I love them equally.
Yes,
I like to say that in my family I have sisters and brothers who are very light, who are very dark, but my family did not discriminate against any of us. They treat us all the same.
Well, that's good.
And in Leslie Parks, I've been knowing her since 1972. She treats the black-skinned person as well as she treats the light-skinned person.
Thank you for making that. Yes, sir.
It's only natural that you're going to have some discrimination in terms of light and dark skin, because the media is programming us that the lighter you are, that's the better, the darker you are. That's, for instance, you want to sell cosmetics, white people put on blush. That means, in that case, dark is better. Generally, if you're black and they want to get to your market, they're going to create things so you can become light skinned. Hair straightener. There's nothing to sell you unless they sell you that lie.
Yeah, it's really... While your pals are buying the light face, or whatever it is you do, all the white folks are laying in the sun trying to get black.
It is the media.
What?
It is the media, because most models, black models on the cover of Ebony or whatever, you see them have light skin, light brown eyes. Yeah, you see that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
My parents are naturalized citizens.
Yes, ma'am.
And where they come from, we would be considered octoroons, because they had each had 1 white and 1 black parent. Now, I go to visit my sister in Los Angeles, and she was working in a department store. I go in, and I ask for her, and the lady says she's out to lunch. And I said, well, tell her her sister was here from New York. So when she came back from lunch, she said, oh, somebody came in playing a joke on you. So she says, what do you mean? She says, oh, there was a woman that came in and said that she was your sister from New York, a black woman. She said, oh, that's my sister. She's here visiting. She says, well, Miss Youngblood, you never told me that you were black. She says, I've known you for 7 years. She says, you never asked me.
Ebony, yes.
I want to get back to that sorority situation, and it doesn't have, you don't have to go back 60 years to define that prejudice. That's the only, in preparing for this show, that's the most prominent memory that I had.
What is that?
Was arguing with my parents about what college I was going to go to, and I utterly refused to go to a black college so that I would not be prejudiced against. I did not want to get into that game playing of the sororities and being pledged into sorority. I just didn't feel like having my heart broken that way.
Phil, I'll give you all a chance. You're entitled to it. Ed, I cannot tell you how grateful I am to see how manageable you've become over the past several years. I admire your passion, and we'll give you a chance to vent it here. I'll give you a chance in just a moment.
Sara Lee has a bagel for people who like lots of raisins, for people who like lots of poppy seeds, and for people who don't like anything at all.
Nobody doesn't like Sara Lee.
Both of these stop the symptoms of a cold. But 12-hour contact works twice as long as Actifed tablets. So if you're sneezing, congested, or have a runny nose, which would you rather take? Until there's a cure, there's contact.
Don't use plain petroleum jelly. But my lips are really dry and cracked. Use Blistex ointment. I've found it's better. Isn't Blistex for cold sores? Sure, but Blistex also helps heal dry, cracked lips. Blistex has 3 forms of medication. Hey, petroleum jelly doesn't. Petroleum jelly coats, but Blistex penetrates for faster relief of dryness and stimulates healing. Penetrates, medicates, stimulates healing. Blistex is better.
I'm going to ask you if you'd like to join the American Association of Retired Persons. And I know what you're thinking. No thanks, I'm not retired. Okay. Then how about joining a group that gives you really helpful advice on all aspects of life over 50? Sound better? It's a non-profit organization that stands up for its 20 million members on issues like Social Security and taxation. Would you like that? It can save you money on health care, prescriptions, and insurance, plus discounts on travel, hotels, motels. It's very tempting, isn't it? You even get Modern Maturity, a great bi-monthly magazine, all for only $5. Now, I know what you're thinking. How do I join? Call 1-800-453-1904. See? You just decided to join that group you thought you had to be retired to join. AARP. All you have to be is over 50. So call 1-800-453-1904. I knew you would.
I know that it is now precisely 11:30 in the morning.
Doctor, are you sure it's morning?
George Burns returns in the delightful Oh God, Book 2.
You make mistakes? Nobody's perfect. I blew it with the Dead Sea. All that salt, no life in it.
You mean you actually heard him?
Sure, I heard him. He was right there in the den.
It's a heavenly experience as George Burns stars Sunday night after late Olympic coverage.
Personal opinion, Phil.
Yeah.
I don't believe that this particular problem of discrimination categorically exists throughout the entire race. It was alluded to earlier that there is ignorance. There's ignorance, that's true. But again, I don't think that it categorically exists. Also, my fraternity has a lot of light-skinned brothers in it. The Q-Dogs. Yeah. All right? That's right. Woof, woof. And we allow all the brothers to express themselves.
Yes. Went to Howard
Yes,
University, Omega Psi Phi, okay, had a group of light-skinned women, and they had a beauty contest. And it was only for light-skinned women.
Thank you.
Okay? All right, now I'm going to tell you.
I would just,
some of the
I would just like to say,
dark-skinned brothers.
okay, I would just like to say that a lot of what we're saying in here is true, okay? And we're going back and forth, white, black, whatever, okay? The bottom line is we got to work together, okay? We should be talking about how we're going to fix the problem and not that whether or not it exists or not.
Please. I agree that there is discrimination between the light skin, dark skin. But what I am saying is that it's separatism that has been created by our society.
We shouldn't be surprised that somebody would co-opt the so-called values of the mainstream culture. That's not a surprise.
Let me make this point. I think that the two things. One is this particular audience is particularly enlightened, so there may not be this degree of racism. But let me take a point that this gentleman made before in terms of Ebony. The question is not what our individual stories are. Some of us are light, some of us are dark, some of us have been hurt, some of us have hurt. The question is, what is the average as you go into black America? Let me offer Ebony as an example. I remember one of my first experiences with light skin, dark skin was as a little Negro looking at Ebony magazine and wondering why is a so-called black magazine have white women on the cover? White women in all of the advertisements, white women in any of the models. Go out of this room right now. Go downstairs to any magazine rack that you want to. Pick up a copy of Ebony and you will see white women. You will see white women who have a smidgen of black in them for anyone who is a model. Go to Time, go to Newsweek, go to anyone who is an advertiser. And if they're doing multi-racial advertising, if there's a black model, it's a light-skinned model. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to say it's very upsetting in this day and time, 1988, that we're sitting here discussing what might be called a lighter shade of pale.
But but please don't.
The problem's not going to go away.
I don't expect the problem. I don't expect the problem to go away, and I know that there is a problem, but I feel that a part of the problem is that the lighter-skinned people of our society also tries to form their own society, which does not help us to get together as a people. I said some.
Why can't she say that without making you angry? Yes. Please.
I think a lot of it is society that's separating us. Society is telling us that we are different, so we are different. Look at black videos. The only person in the video is black is the musician. I mean, that's how it is.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. You'll stand, please?
Yes, there are several issues I'd like to discuss.
You can't do that.
Okay.
All right.
Well, first of all, in terms of black, when you talk about black, you're talking about a political idea. Yes, the idea is that as black people, intellectually you understand it. You said it was negative. White people said it was a negative concept. We as blacks, we come over any rainbow of hue, any hue you have. No one comes like us. Not only that, Dr. Banks was saying that we do not have that schism that you're saying. If we did, like it was said last night by a friend of mine, why, if they separated light against dark, why do we have so many brown people here? We all miscegenate. That's not something. Plus, I want to ask you, something that is prevalent among the Caucasians also. Why does everyone want to be a blonde? Why do white children tell you, or adults tell you, when I was young I was blonde? No, you are whatever you are, and however you advanced, as you aged, you got darker.
Yes.
So look at it from a really intellectual point of view as opposed to an emotional.
I'm trying to. Yes.
Sir, the point is not that there is no schism.
Please listen.
The point is not that there is no schism. In our research at Howard, the very first thing we found is that there are at least 140 different individual distinctions that black people make as a function of complexion. So there's no question that distinctions and discriminations are there. The point I was making initially is that that schism, if and when it exists, does not simply run along the line of light-dark. What the research shows consistently is that black people prefer brown. They do not prefer light, they do not prefer dark, they prefer brown. That is not to say that they don't have some preference, but it is not at either extreme.
Are you there, caller? Let me get this caller on here. Go ahead.
Hello? Okay. The point I'm trying to make, I'm a white man, and I'm married to a young lady of color, and we have a 5-year-old son. And what we encounter every day of our life is people of color resent us, and they hate us. If my wife walks down the street alone, they'll accept her. But let her walk down the street with me and my son, my wife and my son, and we get all kinds of looks, and people come out and say things. So we find that the majority of black people don't accept the fact of interracial marriages. They don't like that.
People can say what they want to. We are trying to deny the fact that we do have prejudice among ourselves. We do. Look at yourself when you get married. Most couples are attracted to the opposite complexion. My husband is dark. My 2 children are in between. Most of the time, that is true. You deny it, it's true.
You agree?
I agree.
He agrees.
That's a true fact. That's a true fact.
You don't agree. Hang on a minute. Well, hang on a minute. Yeah.
I agree that
Hang on a minute.
there is a problem in the black community, and if you do not acknowledge the problem, you will never be able to solve it.
I agree
Never.
with that. I agree with that. But, you know, you're reacting, we shouldn't be surprised, exactly as an audience of white people reacts
No, but it's interesting.
on more than one occasion.
The problem has not been faced and has not been acknowledged because here again, look at the NAACP. Look at the leadership in the Urban League. If you go back to their history in the beginning, you look at one light-skinned Negro after another light-skinned Negro after another light-skinned Negro. They have not brought the subject up because it is embarrassing for them. They are basically predisposed to keep themselves in purgatory at the expense of keeping dark-skinned people in hell.
Thank you. You know, I think that we've missed...
Please let this young woman make her point. Yes, ma'am.
I think that we've missed the whole issue here. I think it's the white people that have the problem because they are in control of the media. Wait a minute. They are in control of the media. And that's what we see, and that's what most of us believe. And another point is that if the problem in the white community, blondes are beautiful. Why do you see so many blondes on television? Because that's their standard. And most of us believe the same kind. We've been taught to believe. Not saying that it's right. We've been taught to believe that.
I think that's true. I've got a break. We'll be back. I'll give you a chance in just a moment. Is there a value system, however warped it might be, that is very close to racism that expresses itself within communities of people of color based upon the shade of that color? Yeah. That's the issue. And when I first presented this question to this audience, I felt the negative energy. But you were responding not unlike any people of any color would. I'm not racist.
You know,
I'm not prejudiced.
That
I'm
continues
not
to happen, Phil, and it will continue to happen. We really made a mistake here to let you allow this to be a black and a light skin sort of thing.
But
and
that's the purpose of the program.
And not bring up Africa, our culture. Not to bring up Africa. We are African American.
I'd just like to point out to my brothers and sisters that we're not expected to be the same, all of us. Look at your... No, it's not a speech.
I know, that we agree with you.
It isn't a speech. Sure, we have problems, you understand? Yeah. But we are here together as a unit, and we're very cohesive, as we are in life. This is just a micronism of how we really are. We have our differences. Sure we do.
Yes, but sometimes those differences express themselves in very unbecoming ways.
Yes, but our differences is what's going to make us strong.
Yes, sir.
Well, basic point I wanted to make is this, though. People, if it weren't color, it would be speech. When I grew up, kids used to make fun of me because of the way I spoke. I mean, look at England and Ireland. I mean, people just fight for the sake of fighting. If it weren't color, it would be something else. I mean, the question I have is, like, where do we go from here? We know this is a problem.
What do you think?
Well, I think we've addressed it as a problem. We've aired the dirty laundry. Like, what's next?
It starts with discrimination in the homes, the light-skinned children and the dark-skinned children. You've got to stop this crap. You've got to teach these children to have self-esteem no matter what they look like.
Exactly. We have to define ourselves. Yeah, that issue, I think, is defining ourselves. And when you see this happening in the classrooms, you realize...
Yes, sir.
I think what's real important that we haven't even begun to think about or even talk about is that as we begin to realize African culture, we begin to realize how much of a rainbow that we are. And until we begin to realize that we are African Americans and that we come in very many hues, we can do that. It's not a big problem, y'all. You know that.
Yes. Yes, sir.
I'm a psychologist in New York City in private practice, and I deal with many black children who express some of the same issues. Until we get our acts together as parents, we can't help the children.
Well said. Yes.
There was a study conducted recently in which black children had a choice between white dolls and black dolls.
And they chose the white dolls.
Right, they chose the white dolls.
Yeah.
I just want to say that we shouldn't allow society to project to us that, you know, one is better than the other. We all together, and that's just their means of trying to divide and conquer. We should all be together.
To be sure.
Services provided and promotional fees paid by the following.
At Volvo, we've been safety testing our cars almost as long as we've been building them, because we want to make sure our customers keep coming back.
True Value's own Harvard brand three-piece cutlery set featuring hardwood handles and stain-free steel blades is available exclusively at True Value hardware stores.
The Drake offers an exciting weekend in New York at a special price. The only Swiss hotel on Park Avenue. For reservations, call 800-DRAKE-NEW YORK or 212-421-0900.
Yes, I'm a student at Lakewood High School, and I find that there's not discrimination against how light you are.